Today is the 14th Kislev, the day of the Rebbe's wedding, and the day that he said connected him with us. Connected him with us, because if he wouldn't have become the son-in-law of the Friediger Rebbe,
he wouldn't become the Rebbe.
Wouldn't become the Rebbe. So he said that was what connected him. Okay, so let's see if we can get to the end of the Ramak's explanation here. So all this in chapter 1 was to deal with what we saw from the Ramak. Just saying this because we're coming up on the end, and at the end he's going to bring it all together to what the Ramak said. And we'll have to speculate a little on what he means, because it's not 100% clear to me, at least. Maybe it'll become clear as we read it. Okay, so where are we? According to this introduction, let's see if that's true, that's where we are. Okay, so a little bit more. This is a secret behind the connotation that's given to Netzach and Hod, to victory and acknowledgement. The Sfirot in the bottom third, and what we called here the Sof, the end, being referred to as willows of the brook, right? In the Arba Minim, in the 4 species that we take on Sukkot, so the 2 Aravot, they're called Arvei Nachal. So what does that mean? Why are they called Arvei Nachal? So the Gemara says is they have neither taste nor fragrance. Okay. Why do they have no taste? Because there's no pleasure in them. There's no pleasure either, right? Because the pleasure already finished. It only goes down to the heart. That's it. So it doesn't have taste. There's no reason behind it. And there's no fragrance. There's no pleasure. There's neither of them. It's gone. That's what we mean, right? We always say that the Aravot have neither taste nor fragrance. The Lulav has taste because it has dates, and the Hadassim have fragrance, and the Etrog has both. But the Aravot, which are Netzach and Hod, altogether the 7 pieces of shrubbery that we take. So that is the reason for it, because it's the mind is already gone, meaning the motivation is gone, the tam, and the pleasure is the fragrance, as they have neither taste nor fragrance. They are also called the thighs that are external to the body. Okay? They're also called yarchin delevar migufa. The thighs that are external to the body. That's another name that they have. So usually we identify them with the thighs. Okay? That's Netzach and Hod. Why the thighs and not further? Because usually what we say is that they're the part of the first extension of the foot, of the foot. So the foot is already outside the body. Yarachin levar migufa, that it's outside the body. Because we said in the body, anything that's in the body still has the feeling of the heart. It still has. So usually when people have problem with circulation, so the extremities are the first place that they have problems. So obviously it starts even lower, but the feet are already outside the main circulation of the body. So, and like we said, in every attribute, every sphere, there are these 3 levels. And again, they're called just like we saw in the wisdom of the loving kindness, the chesed, and the chesed itself, the chesed atzmo, shebipnimiyut, that's internally, ugmar hashefa nikra netzach, and the end of the flow of the what came down from the mind is called netzach, and it has to be netzach. It has to be. So I mentioned in the beginning, this is all related to tikkun yesod. It's all connected to rectifying the foundation. Because really, the whole book of Genesis, the whole book of Bereshit is Tikkun HaYesod. It's really all to. We see time after time that the problems that arise in Bereshit are problems. They start with the first problem, which was Adam and Eve, that they eat from the tree of knowledge, and we say that that was their pagama brit. That was their blemish of the covenant. Because they only had one thing to do, which was not to eat from that tree until Hashem would say it was okay. So it would have been okay, theoretically, on Shabbos, if they would have waited a few hours. So why were they so so gung-ho to eat from it. So we say that's impulsivity. That's being impulsive. The whole problem of Bereshit is everybody's impulsive. That's the way it is in the beginning. The world is very impulsive. When you say something is tohu, like all these parashot, everything is going to happen here. It's all the fixing of the impulsivity. So in Vayetze and Vayishlach that we just read, everything is being impulsive. Everything from beginning to end. Esav is impulsive. He comes back tired. I'll sell it. I'll sell you my. Sit down a little. Calm down. Think you're not going to die in a second. He really didn't mean that he was going to die that moment. What he meant was, I will eventually die, so I don't care about anything now. Even that's like. But that's also impulsivity. Give yourself some time. Calm down, and you'll see that the life is not as. What? Impulsivity is זה פגם הברית. The person is איך אומרים impulsive.
חסר סבלנות. חוסר סבלנות.
כאילו. כן,
סבלנות.
אימפולסיביטי זה כאילו שהוא פועל בלי שכל. כאילו הוא... כולם ככה בהתחלה. Everybody's like that in the beginning. בסדר, so we're particular people, we're individuals. There, the Torah begins with the problems of impulsivity. You can say all the chataim, all the sins are that way. Yeah, right. So on the first day, they were created that did so much. מה המילה? impulsivity. זו מילה מאוד פשוטה. זו מילה שהמון משתמשים בה. It's a very common word in Hebrew. I just don't... Impulsivity, כאילו... בכל אופן, זה פגם הברית. That's what it means to blemish the covenant. Now, why? So, what he's saying here is that netzach is that there has to be determination, there has to be drive, even when the pleasure is gone, even when everything's finished. So what is that? What's going on? So he's saying that at the end of the act, there has to be like an arrow being drawn back. The work is to draw the arrow back, but when you let go, it's finished. You can't stop it anymore. You can't bring it back to where it was. Once the arrow shoots, it's finished. And that's how the sages describe the end of the procreative process. That when a man and a woman have relations, the end is such that you can't hold it back. There's no way you can hold it back. Why? Because the whole point is that you can't undo it. There has to be something that's not connected to will. That's not connected to. Once it's out, it's out, and that's when the main action happens. The main act, the main thing that happens is without your determination. You have no control anymore, and you even, like he says, in many things you don't even have pleasure anymore. The pleasure is gone. At that moment that it shoots, the pleasure is over. It's finished. You don't get pleasure afterwards. You found it? Okay. Anyway, so Netzach, Chod, and Yesod, they all work the same way. That they're like that's why we say they're outside the body, because it's like that at the end of the act there's something that is not in your power anymore. It's finished. And that you need to fix. How do you fix it? How do you rectify the blemish? Do you have to really mean what you're doing? So that when you come to that point, it's in a rectified manner, that you really shoot where you meant to shoot, and not shoot by mistake. So, because all they are, what they're doing is they are the vessels to channel the flow outward to others. So, for instance, in Yesod, there's something that the Rebbe Rayatz, the sixth Rebbe, used to say a lot, is that this is particularly in his treatise on education, that you can only, if your Yesod, if your foundation is rectified, you only do one thing at a time. You don't try to do two things at a time. Meaning actions have to be kol davar b'ito v'zmano. Everything, because it's sequential. It has to be. You get into problems when you start doing two things at once. I always find myself, when I'm in a rush, so suddenly I find myself carrying 10 things in my arms, all the things I need to go out with, and I see this and I see that and I see that, and then I can't do anything.
Multitasking is is an
It's
unfortunate thing.
right, and it's a blemish of the covenant. Okay. I learned, so when I catch myself with more than 2 things, I say, okay, well, hold on, stop. Even if it's going to take another minute, I'm going to put everything down in one place. Then I'm going to do the other things I need, and okay, something like that. Good. Okay. So now he says, so we learned all this. So now we can put this all together, he says. And what does it mean to put it all together? So he says, "V'al pi hakdama zu," right? We're in the right place. "V'al pi hakdama zu yuvan derech haramak, באומרו שעניין הפגם הוא הסתלקות פני הרחמים מאותו הספירה, מחמת קטרוגים וצעקת האחרים." Okay. So, according to everything we just learned, this Rosh Toch Sof, an explanation of what Netzach is. So, when the man hit or hurt Jacob in his thigh, we're not saying which one it is, left or right thigh. Seemingly here it's the right thigh. So what was this? When he states that the concept of the defect, the pgam, is the withdrawal of the face of mercy, pnei harachamim, from that sphira, due to accusations and the cries of external forces. And in our case, that's Jacob's thigh being blemished. So what happened here? That Jacob had some kind of mercy, compassion over him. And because there was some kind of critique, he says here, the acherim, this accusation, cries of external forces. So it's not Jacob as a person. We're not talking about Jacob as a person. We're talking about Jacob as a symbol. So here we said that when the Jewish people have some kind of criticism over them, so where are the external forces going to be able to hurt them? So he says it's specifically in a place where there is no more compassion. So what he's saying is that the compassion starts from the mind and it goes all the way down to the thighs, but it doesn't reach the thighs. It's everything until here, meaning that the mind will still work, the heart will still work, but when you get to the thighs, they're going to be naked. They're going to be without this face of passion, of compassion protecting them. So the defect occurred specifically in the sphere of Netzach because it is known, based on what is written in Avinu Ava Rachamim, our father of compassion, that compassion stems specifically from the level of Mochin de Gadlut, from expanded consciousness. Whereas Mochin de Katnut, which is constricted consciousness, is associated with dinim, with judgment. So what's going on here? That we see that Yaakov, when he's fighting this man, it didn't happen by chance. There was no one there. Vayivater Yaakov levado. He was there all alone, and suddenly he confronts someone. So where did this person suddenly come from? He's all alone. Suddenly you tell me he's with someone. So he's saying no. When he's alone, that's when he's confronted with him. This aloneness. Why was it mochin de katnut? Why was it a place of small-mindedness? Because what was Yaakov doing at the time? Why did he remain alone? Yeah, he went to see about small vessels that he had been left behind. So on the face of it, this is like mochin de katnut. This is like, why are you concerned with these small articles? So the sages say, of course he's concerned because he's a tzaddik, and a tzaddik, everything really belongs to him, and he paid for it with good money and with his sweat. It's not a light thing for him. Still, to be involved in that when you're
what's going on,
right, with everything that's going on, with your bringing back your whole family to Eretz Yisrael, and you moved your whole family, and then you leave yourself alone. So here he's hinting to, in my opinion, he's hinting to what the Shulchan Aruch says. The Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to walk alone at night.
Yeah, that's right.
So how did Yaakov do this? He's going against halacha. He's going against. So sadly, he has a good reason. But the Shulchan Aruch still says. Again, people say Shulchan Aruch, Yaakov, is anachronistic. What are you doing? That's not. But this was the Shulchan Aruch didn't. This is not a halacha that came about because it came from Sinai. It's a halacha that came about because this is how people live. And you can't play around at these things. So it's a sort of small-mindedness. So he says when there's small-mindedness, that's exactly when there's not enough compassion above to reach all the way down. And then in Netzach it stops, because naturally in Netzach there's not compassion. How would you do it in Netzach? How would it? So he says if it's in great mindedness and Moichin the Gadlus, then it goes all the way down. And even it becomes stronger in the Netzach V'Hod. Because we said there, it's like determined. It's like it'll go down without a reason, without pleasure.
It moves without even the mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
But here, if you're already in a state of small-mindedness, there's not enough to go down. It stops. It reaches all the way down to the torso, and then it stops, as it were. And then in Netzach V'Hod, meaning, in other words, that's exactly what I just described, that when you're rushing, and you can't think, you're not thinking clearly, and your wits are not about you, then you start messing stuff up. Small mistakes, small things that then cost you dearly, because your actions are not guided anymore. They're not serving their real purpose. It's almost like you're acting without your mind, without your heart. It's just acting because it's acting. You're doing things, and there's no feedback from the mind. There's nothing going on. So when it's about compassion, so the compassion of Hashem is gone, as it were. And it's just, this is where you're going to be naked, you're going to be vulnerable. So we'll see tomorrow how he finishes this. Because
the compassion's gone. Explain that better.
Okay, right. So to say just in one word, that when we say that a person wanted to do something, we mean that the wanting to do it has to last all the way down to the action. That's the compassion here. The compassion here is just an example. It's not. So Avinu always means my will. So my will is compassionate. What does it mean it's compassionate? I think that this is a feeling that I have. I remember, there was a moment in my life when I was young that I caught this from someone. You don't see it in everyone. It's not in everyone. I was at a friend's house for Shabbos, and I saw his father, Shabbos morning, woke up very early. This would have been my age, like in his 50s. And he prepared a cup of coffee, and he sat down to learn Gemara. And I just watched him. And that was the first time, because my father didn't learn Gemara, ever. He made coffee, but never learned Gemara. It was the first time that I saw a yid, like a middle-aged man, with real presence of mind. That even when you make the coffee, even when you say, there's this, that's what I call compassion. It's like you're compassionate about your life. You're present. You're there. You're all there for what you're doing right now. You're not hassled. So it's only on Shabbos morning, maybe. You don't have it all the time. But that was the first time I caught this, and I said, that's the way you need to be all the time.
I once observed the Lulav Rebbe Zatzel, and I realized every action he did was
willful.
Right. And then I went to a big Rav, and I mentioned that. He said, I knew his father was the same
thing. So being willful, that's what he means by Avinu Aval Chaman. It's just that it's like you're being compassionate on yourself.
It is a compassion.
It comes out in every action. So you see, like for instance, in the Rebbe Rayatz, when he was arrested, so he had like a few hours that were crazy, and then he decided that's it. He sat down somewhere. He went into a room. He sat down. He said, I have to collect my thoughts. And that saved him, by the way, because if he would have gone outside, they would have killed him right there and then. That's what he said. But those moments of be compassionate to yourself, just collect yourself, and even if you don't have new thoughts, it doesn't matter, but be whole, be complete, then you're in Moichin de Gadlus. That's great-mindedness. And small-mindedness is that you're distraught. You can't hold the two thoughts together. Okay, so we'll see more about it.